Important principles on the realization of Nibbana. The following questions are often debated among Buddhist scholars and practitioners. Can someone who only practices insight meditation vipassana attain arahantship without practicing tranquility meditation samatha? It is necessary to attain jhana before attaining nibbana? To achieve the 6 kinds of higher psychic attainments of abhinya, is it sufficient to have attained the 4th jhana, or must one have attained the formless jhanas, i.e. the 8 samapatti? To attain the knowledge of the destruction of the tents, asavakayayana, and realize nibbana, must one have previously attained the reminiscence of past lives, pubeni wa sanusatiyana, and the knowledge of the decease and rebirth of beings, kutu papa Yana. While in jhana, can one practice insight and contemplate conditioned phenomena, or must one first emerge from jhana? Is it possible to develop samatha further and achieve concentrative attainments, jhana samapatti, after attaining path and fruit, magapala? Some of these questions involve key aspects of realizing nibbana. Some are only tangentially related, and some have already been discussed at length, especially the question on whether a person can attain nibbana solely on practicing insight meditation. This section will focus on those questions which are directly related to realization, drawing upon evidence from the scriptures. General aspects of realization. I declare, O monks, that the destruction of the tents occurs in dependence on the 1st jhana, or the 2nd jhana, or the 3rd jhana, or the 4th jhana, in dependence on the base of the infinity of space, or the base of the infinity of consciousness, or the base of nothingness, or the base of neither perception nor non-perception, or in dependence on the cessation of perception and feeling. This sutta and 3 other suttas describe the way to use each stage of contemplative attainment for reflection and to gain insight into the true nature of conditioned phenomena. The above sutta continues. When it is said, I declare, O monks, that the destruction of the tents occurs in dependence on the 1st jhana, for what reason is this said? Here a monk enters and dwells in the 1st jhana. Whatever states are included, they are comprised by form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, or consciousness. He views those states as impermanent, as subject to pressure, as empty, as non-self. Having viewed them thus, his mind then turns away from those states and focuses upon the deathless element. This is peaceful, this is sublime, that is Nibbana. If he sustains the 1st jhana, he attains the destruction of the tents. But if he does not attain the destruction of the tents because of delight in the Dhamma, then he is due to be spontaneously reborn in the celestial realm, Suddha Vasa, and there attain final Nibbana without ever returning from that world. From here the sutta describes a similar process of cultivating insight to reach the destruction of the tents. for each of the concentrative levels all the way up to the sphere of nothingness. The Mahamalunkyā Sutta has less detail but describes the contemplation of the three characteristics in reference to the five aggregates in each of the jhanas up to the sphere of nothingness, resulting in the destruction of the taints. The Atthakkanagara and Dasama Suttas have a slight variation. Monk enters and abides in the first jhana. He considers this and understands it thus. This first jhana is conditioned and volitionally produced, but whatever is conditioned and volitionally produced is impermanent, subject to cessation. Sustaining that first jhana, he attains the destruction of the taints. In these suttas, the liberations of mind through loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity are inserted between the fine material jhanas and the formless jhanas, adding 4 more concentrative attainments for contemplation. These 4 suttas contain essentially the same information. They differ only in minor details. They describe the development of insight in jhana from the first jhana to the sphere of nothingness, ending in the destruction of the taints. The Jhana Sutta, however, adds a summary. Thus, monks, there is penetration to final knowledge, Anya Pati Veda, as far as meditative attainments accompanied by perception, Sanya Samapati reach. This means that in jhana, from the sphere of nothingness and below, there is perception, along with other accompanying aggregates, which can be applied for contemplation and supports insight for the realization of the destruction of the taints. In the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception, Nevasanya na Sanyayatana, perception is too refined and cannot be applied for contemplation. This holds even more true in the extinction of perception and feeling, Sanya Veda Ita Nirodha. Therefore, these 2 attainments are not attainments accompanied by perception, Sanya Samapati. If this is so, how is it possible to attain the destruction of the taints while in the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception, and in the extinction of perception and feeling? The answer is that one must first exit these highest levels of concentrative attainment and then apply wisdom to contemplate conditioned phenomena and reach the destruction of the taints. The Anupada Sutta contains a passage concerning the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. Again, monks, by completely surmounting the base of nothingness, Sariputta entered upon and abided in the base of neither perception nor non-perception. He emerged mindful from that attainment. Having done so, he contemplated the past states which had ceased and changed. Thus, so indeed, these states, not having been, come into being, having been, they vanish. Similar explanations are given in reference to the extinction of perception and feeling, Sanya Veda Iyata Nirodha. Having emerged from this attainment, a person contemplates the fine material qualities of this state, contemplates the qualities in the preceding state of neither perception nor non-perception, or contemplates all conditioned phenomena, to understand the truth and reach the destruction of the taints. In a similar fashion, one can contemplate conditioned phenomena or the mental constitutes of jhana after emerging from each of the jhanas, from the sphere of nothingness down to the first jhana. The passages above are provided. However, to prove that it is also possible to develop insight while abiding in these states of jhana, without first emerging from them. Only with the two highest concentrative attainments of neither perception nor non-perception, and the extinction of perception and feeling, must one first exit in order to develop insight. The commentaries refer to one who practices in this way as one who uses tranquility as a vehicle, samatha yanika. Such a practitioner practices tranquility until reaching jhana, at which point he or she develops insight. This is the first way of practice in a group of 4, which is mentioned in the scriptures. 1. The practice of insight preceded by tranquility, samatha puban gama vipassana bhavana. 2. The practice of tranquility preceded by insight, vipassana puban gama samatha bhavana. 3. The practice of tranquility and insight in association, yugana sada samatha vipassana bhavana. 4. The way of practice when the mind is distorted or misled by an excitement or agitation in regard to the Dhamma, Dhamma dacha vigahita manasa. Here one has the misapprehension that the intermediate results of one's practice constitute path, fruit, and Nibbana. These 4 ways of practice are a summary of the 4 pathways, Magga, described by Venerable Ananda. Friends, whatever bhikkhu or bhikkhuni has declared the attainment of arahantship in my presence has done so by these 4 paths, or by a certain one among them. What 4? Here, friends, a monk develops insight preceded by tranquility. While he develops insight preceded by tranquility, the path arises in him. He now pursues, develops, and cultivates that path, and while he is doing so, the fetters are abandoned and the underlying tendencies are uprooted. Again, friends, a monk develops tranquility preceded by insight. While he develops tranquility preceded by insight, the path arises in him. He now pursues, develops, and cultivates that path, and the underlying tendencies are uprooted. Again, friends, a monk develops tranquility and insight in tandem. While he thus develops tranquility and insight in tandem, the path arises in him. He now pursues, develops, and cultivates that path, and the underlying tendencies are uprooted. Or again, friends, a monk's mind is seized by agitation caused by higher states of mind. But there comes a time when his mind becomes internally steady, composed, unified, and concentrated. Then the path arises in him. He now pursues, develops, and cultivates that path, and the underlying tendencies are uprooted. Insight preceded by tranquility. The Patisambhida Magga defines this thus. Initially, the mind is one-pointed, steady, and concentrated. This concentration can arise from any of these causes: the power of renunciation, nekama; the power of freedom from ill will, abhyapada; the perception of light, aloka sanya, which combats drowsiness and absence of restlessness, avikepa; reflection on aspects of Dhamma, Dhamma vavadana, which dispels doubt; knowledge, jnana, joy, pamuja, the first jhana, the second jhana, the third jhana, the fourth jhana, the sphere of infinity of space, akasanya chayatana, the sphere of infinity of consciousness, vijnana chayatana, the sphere of nothingness, the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception, the 10 kasina meditations, meditation on the 10 reflections, anusati, meditation on the 10 stages of decay, asubha, and meditation on the 32 aspects of mindfulness of breathing. Concentration is followed by wisdom, which discerns all the attributes of the different stages of concentration as impermanent, subject to pressure, dukkha, and non-self. The commentaries present a simpler explanation for this first way of practice. A person first develops concentration, either access concentration or attainment concentration. He then reflects on that level of concentration, along with accompanying mental factors as impermanent, etc., until there is noble path attainment, Ariyamaga. Tranquility preceded by insight, the Patisambhida Magga explains. Initially, a person uses insight to see things as impermanent, subject to pressure and non-self. Then he lets go of all the qualities manifest during insight meditation, and this letting go becomes the new object of meditation. The mind then becomes one-pointed and concentrated. The commentaries elaborate, a person has not yet generated tranquility, but he or she discerns the universal characteristics, impermanence, etc. In the 5 aggregates of clinging, upadana khandha, when insight vipassana is complete, letting go of all factors of insight becomes the object of meditation, and the mind becomes one-pointed and concentrated. This leads to path attainment. The commentaries say that whichever of these 2 ways of practice a person follows, tranquility preceded by insight or insight preceded by tranquility, tranquility and insight must always arise side by side at the moment of noble path attainment. This is so because samatha and vipassana are essentially equivalent to the 8 factors of the noble path. Vipassana equals right view, samadhi and right intention, sama sankappa, and samatha comprises all the remaining 6 factors. These 8 factors arise naturally together at the moment of attaining the noble realm, Arya Bhumi. Tranquility and insight in tandem, the Patisambhida Magga explains. A person develops tranquility and insight in tandem in 16 ways. One of these ways is that the practice of samatha and the practice of vipassana lead to an identical object of meditation, ramana. For example, when one abandons restlessness, udacha, the mind becomes concentrated, and cessation, nirodha, becomes the object of awareness. At the same time, by abandoning ignorance, insight arises and cessation becomes the object of awareness. In this way, tranquility and insight work together on an equal basis. Some commentarial passages claim that although there is cooperation between tranquility and insight, this does not mean that samatha and vipassana arise simultaneously, since it is not possible to contemplate conditioned phenomena while the mind is one-pointed in jhana. These passages state that these 2 ways of meditation act as a pair insofar that insight follows on from a person's level of concentrative attainment, and equally the next level of concentrative attainment relies on one's previous level of insight. A person enters first jhana, exits first jhana, contemplates the conditioned nature of first jhana, enters second jhana, exits second jhana, contemplates the conditioned nature of second jhana, enters third jhana, etc., until he exits from and contemplates the conditioned nature of the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. An important example of this explanation is the account of Venerable Sariputta, who developed tranquility and insight in tandem, from the first jhana to the attainment of path and fruit of arahantship. The way of practice when the mind is misled by higher states of mind. The Patisambhidamagga explains. When a person reflects on the three characteristics in reference to the five aggregates, the following mind states may arise: radiance, or bhasa, knowledge, jnana, bliss, piti, serenity, passaddhi, joy, sukha, determination, adhimokkha, balanced effort, pagaha, careful attention, upatthana, equanimity, upekkha, and devotion, nikanti. The practitioner here believes that the radiance, for example, is a higher state of mind. He believes he has attained path, fruit, or Nibbana. Thinking in this way may cause restlessness, and these 10 states of mind are not seen as they really are, as impermanent, subject to pressure and not self. Wise discernment of these 10 mind states, causing the mind to waver, leads to a settled, clear and concentrated mind. With this wisdom, one is not carried away by these mind states. The heart will be pure and still, and one's meditation will neither be misguided nor impaired. The path can subsequently arise. The commentaries refer to these higher states of mind as the 10 impurities of insight, vipassanupakilesa, which arise in people whose insight practice is still weak, taruna vipassana. Because these qualities are exceptional and have not been experienced before, practitioners are likely to believe they have attained path and fruit. This misunderstanding leads them to deviate from the way of insight. The correct way of practice is to recognize the true nature of these mental states when they arise, that they are impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, paticca samuppanna, and subject to decline. They do not belong to us. They are not who we are. I am not this. This is not mine. By not being overly excited by these mental states, attachment to them wanes. The person is then able to practice correctly until reaching path and fruit. According to the commentaries, there are 2 principal ways of practice: insight preceded by tranquility, and tranquility preceded by insight. The remaining 2 ways of practice are simply extensions of these former 2. The third way of practice of tranquility and insight in tandem is a subdivision of the first way of practice. The fourth way of practice is applied in special circumstances, when specific problems arise by practicing the first 3 ways. It is a strategy for solving these problems arising in practice. These 2 principal ways of practice are probably the origin of 2 meditation techniques enumerated in the commentaries. The vehicle of tranquility, samatha jnana, of the samatha jnanika, one who uses tranquility as a vehicle, and the vehicle of insight, vipassana jnana, of the vipassana jnanika, one who uses insight as a vehicle. The samatha jnanika practices tranquility first and insight later. Generally speaking, this tranquility can simply be access concentration, upachara samadhi, or it can refer to attainment concentration, panna samadhi of the jhanas. The commentaries prefer the more restricted meaning for someone who has attained the jhanas. They claim that the way of practice described by the Buddha quoted at the beginning of this section, i.e. that the destruction of the tents occurs in dependence on the first jhana, etc., belongs to the samatha jnanika. A Vipassana Yonika is also called a Suddha Vipassana Yonika, one who practices pure insight as a vehicle. This refers to those who develop insight without having previously developed concentration. When they have correctly contemplated the true nature of things, the mind becomes peaceful and concentration arises automatically. At first, the concentration may be temporary, Khanika Samadhi, which is the lowest level of concentration required for subsequent insight practice, as confirmed by this passage. Without temporary concentration, insight cannot function. Someone who begins with temporary concentration and then practices insight is also classified as a Vipassana Yonika. Because most everyone experiences temporary concentration when the mind is settled in an activity or due to a conducive environment. As concentration becomes naturally stronger through insight practice, it may develop into access concentration, Upachara Samadhi, concentration on the verge of jhana. Finally, at the moment of realizing path and fruit, concentration is well established as attainment concentration, and one reaches at least the first jhana. This accords with the principle mentioned earlier that a person realizing the noble realm must be accomplished in both tranquility and insight. When those who use tranquility as a vehicle attain arahantship, they are divided in two kinds: those liberated by wisdom, panya vimutta, and those liberated both ways, ubato bhaga vimutta. The former are those who have attained jhana not higher than the fourth jhana. The latter are those who have attained a formless jhana or higher, up to the extinction of perception and feeling. Those who use insight as a vehicle and who attain arahantship are all classified as panya vimutta, and the commentaries assign a special name for them: Sukha Vipassaka, dry insight practitioners. The commentaries divide the arahants into 10 kinds, listed from the highest to the lowest. A. Those liberated both ways, ubato bhaga vimutta. 1. Liberated in both ways and accomplished in the extinction of perception and feeling. 2. Liberated in both ways and accomplished in the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. 3. Liberated in both ways and accomplished in the sphere of nothingness. 4. Liberated in both ways and accomplished in the sphere of infinite consciousness. 5. Liberated in both ways and accomplished in the sphere of infinite space. B. Those liberated by wisdom, panya vimutta. 6. Liberated through wisdom and accomplished in the fourth jhana. 7. Liberated through wisdom and accomplished in the third jhana. 8. Liberated through wisdom and accomplished in the second jhana. 9. Liberated through wisdom and accomplished in the first jhana. 10. Liberated through wisdom as a dry insight practitioner. The first 9 kinds of arahants use tranquility as a vehicle. Their concentrative accomplishments occur before practicing insight. The 10th kind of arahant uses insight as a vehicle.